Hello viewers, welcome back to Daily Retro. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So we're doing a review of possibly my favourite arcade racing game ever made. Quite simply, it is Art of Rally on Nintendo Switch. This has only been out a year or so, I think, actually physical. Digital, it's been sort of nearly 5 years now. So I came to it quite late, but I always like to have physical instead of digital. It's nice to have the physical cartridge as well, and you get some nice like bonuses with it. I haven't actually made it yet, but it comes with this sort of pop-up paper car that you can make with it, which is from the game, which is really cool, and some stickers and such. But yeah, I've just completed this game, so as some of you may know, I'm massively into my sim racing, actually on a sim rig, which is to my right. So going into an arcade game always feels a bit strange for me because the physics sort of don't apply, but I can safely say that Art of Rally, the physics do apply to some extent. So I'll be going to take you through some tips and tricks I've sort of acquired, that I've sort of transferred from sim rallying to this arcade title. Really enjoyed this game. I went as far as completing it on skilled difficulty, which is like their hard equivalent. The very hard difficulty just seemed ridiculous. It was sort of, you had to get the best time in the world every stage, which is never going to happen unless you're really determined. And that's like the best time in the world for anyone on the same platform, I think it is. But yeah, but without further ado, we're going to get into some gameplay and go through how I sort of went faster and faster as the game went on, and then yeah, I hope you'll be able to sort of comment down below as to if you've enjoyed this game or any tips you're going to take from this video. Hopefully it'll be of some use to someone. But yeah, without further ado, we'll get into that footage. So I've chosen a stage that I'm currently 8th in the world on. It's a stage that I really enjoy in Indonesia. A really short stage, just to sort of, so you can see repetitive attempts at a stage that you can then see the improvements I'm going to make. I'm attempting this time to sort of get the best time in the world. I won't spoil the ending, but so without further ado, I'll talk about the tips I use from sim racing that sort of apply to Art of Rally. So there's a lot of things that are similar. What I generally do when I'm entering a stage like this is just literally the first couple of times you're attempting a stage to go fast, don't try to not crash. It sounds stupid, but just make sure you do stupid stuff the first few times you're attempting a stage. Just go far too fast into a corner and see how much speed you can sort of carry around them. There's a good corner in this stage that I thought I'm never going to take that absolutely flat out, but you can if you take the right line. The controls are extremely sensitive in Art of Rally, so you do have to have some fine control. I would definitely recommend having a Nintendo Switch Pro controller if you're playing it on the Switch. And yeah, it makes sense to try stupid things the first few times you're attempting a stage, and then when you are attempting to set what is going to be your final time, you can then have more belief in where you're going to be braking and how much speed you're going to be taking through each corner. I know I'm taking this a little bit too seriously for an arcade game, but I absolutely love it. I'm using the Cosworth Escort from the Group A era in this stage. I really enjoyed driving this car from that era. It's just a really good handling car. You can generally sort of tell when it's going to snap on you and get quite predictable handling. So it does help to choose a car that you prefer. Don't necessarily choose cars that everyone else is using. And then just on the braking front, just make sure that you're hardly ever using the handbrake, which is the A button on the Nintendo Switch. This is purely because it is generally not really used or needed, to be honest. I only really use it if I have overshot a corner and I quickly need to rotate the car. I only really use it for really tight hairpins, or there's occasional in other stages like man-made chicanes with hay bales, and the hay bales, if you do hit them, they are going to put you off course an awful lot. But yeah, I generally use the normal standard brake just to get the car to rotate. and try and do sort of the Scandinavian flick, if you know what it is, before sort of tighter corners. So that's where you turn right, entering slightly into a left-hand hairpin, and then as you turn left, that's when you start to brake, and then the car will rotate more under braking, and that will get the car to rotate. So I generally find if I was to use the handbrake a lot, it generally over rotates the car in that situation in this game. And the handbrake is very similar between every car in this game, so it makes sense to get used to it only in small occasions, let's say. So another key point I want to get across is consistency. So Art of Rally obviously is a difficult game, especially like me if you're playing it in hard mode. You really want to keep it clean whenever you can. The career mode is very difficult sometimes, but it makes sense. If you're not having a completely perfect 100% stage, just keep going, because it seems like this game is very similar to actual rally games, where the harder the difficulty for you, the harder the AI are actually pushing as well, which means they actually make more mistakes. So if you're fighting to beat someone in a certain rally or for a certain championship, you might go through the stage and think, oh well, that wasn't a very good time, and then you see the time board and actually they've crashed or come a minute behind you, and then you can just sort of cruise to the end of the rally by not winning every stage, not pushing too much, and you still win the rally because everyone else is slow. I found that a lot in this game. So definitely don't feel like you have to win every stage. It's definitely not necessary. As long as you're sort of fairly consistent and you're pushing sort of 90%, you've got a good chance of doing well in every stage. And it makes sense to keep consistent, because it's going to pay dividends when you're doing career rallies, which are several rallies at a time. So this is going to be the final attempt of this stage, that I'm going to try and be as consistent as I can to get the best time I can. You can see I've learnt a lot from sort of crashing in previous attempts, but it makes sense now because I can go flat through some of these corners that you really don't think you can. Always keep it in the centre of the road. If you do go offline, it can really impact your time, just because the more you've got more grip in the centre of the road on this game, and just if you do have small mistakes, just don't give up. I mean, there you can see I had a little moment where I almost clipped a bale, and I thought that wasn't a particularly good exit from a hairpin, but for the rest of the stage I was absolutely perfect. So it makes sense to keep going even if you've made small mistakes. You will surprise yourself sometimes with how high up the rankings you are just from doing that sort of thing. And then if you are consistent to the end, you'll generally set a really good time, which is what I did in this one, and that was good enough for second in the world. Only 0.1 of a second, annoyingly, behind the top time. I'm sure I'll get there at some point. I believe that's the top time in the world for the Nintendo Switch platform. It's not multi-platform, so there probably is better times out there on PC and such, but I felt fairly happy with that run. I'm pretty sure I could cut off that 0.1 of a second by probably at least a second if I was to be perfect in every corner. And then as a final note for this game, before I sort of leave you with a little montage, don't forget to enjoy it. It is a really fun game, this, which is why I put so much time into it. So make sure when you're playing, if you are getting really frustrated with trying to set a good time, good enough to sort of beat the AI or people online, then if you are getting frustrated with multiple attempts, which does happen a lot for me. I mean, I would spend up to an hour sometimes doing one stage and getting so annoyed that I just turn it off. Make sure that you are enjoying it. I am absolutely obsessed with this game. It's honestly the go-to game when I'm not having to use the sim rig. Even when I crash, I still find it fairly fun, which is not sort of translated into other arcade racing games, let's say. So make sure you enjoy it. Your times will generally surprise you when you relax while playing this game. But for the most part, I find this game ultra relaxing and really enjoyable to play. So make sure you do as well. And if you've got any questions on sort of how you go any faster in Art of Rally, or any tips yourselves, then please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'm really impressed with how much this game keeps pulling me back, and I'm hoping it's not just me that this game is doing that for. Overall, the Nintendo Switch is probably not the best platform to play it on just because of the performance, but it's good enough to sort of enjoy it. There's a few little frame drops, but yeah, I can't complain too much because it's just such a fun game. Overall, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10, and if it was on a PS4 or onwards, then it probably would be a 10 out of 10 arcade racing game for me. Just an absolute perfection mix of physics, fun and rallying, which is something I absolutely adore. But yeah, that's the end of this video, guys. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and see you very soon for another video. Cheers.